Hey guys, tonight we're drifting into the world of medieval peasants and their brutal winters, a time when your fingers were always slightly numb and your best defense against frostbite was cuddling against the family goat. If you've ever complained about your heating bill, you're about to feel incredibly spoiled. So before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy my work, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's oddly comforting to see so many different people coming together from all around the world. Now, dim the lights, puff up those pillows and settle in. Let's slowly descend into the strangely uncomfortable past. Together. You aren't woken by an alarm clock. There is no gentle melody easing you into the day. You're woken by pain. It's a specific kind of pain, a deep and biting cold that feels less like a temperature and more like a physical assault. It has crawled inside your bones and taken up residence, an unwelcome guest that refuses to leave. You don't know the time or even the day, only that it is still dark and the world is frozen solid. You're lying in a wooden shack that seems to be constructed more from holes than from actual walls, and the wind hasn't bothered to stay outside. It's here, inside with you, a constant moving presence that makes the very air feel sharp enough to cut. This isn't just a chilly morning, it's a state of being. A hostile environment you have somehow survived through the night. Your first conscious thought is not of the day ahead, but of the cold itself, this relentless enemy that has you surrounded. It owns the floor, the walls, and the space between your shivering body and the thin material covering you. It is the first and last thing you will feel today. Slowly you force your eyes open, and you are greeted by a world painted in shades of grey. There is no sun, only a faint, diffused light that suggests the outside world exists, but has no warmth to offer. As you breathe, a tiny, fleeting cloud forms in front of your face, a visible puff of your own life force escaping into the frigid air. You watch it dissipate, a momentary proof of life before it's swallowed by the gloom. Your only protection against this is what you generously call a blanket. In reality, it is a coarse burlap sack, stiff with grime and age. It carries a distinct, lingering scent, a complex aroma of damp sheep, old straw, and the faint, unmistakable smell of regret. It offers almost no warmth, serving more as a psychological barrier than a physical one, a thin shield against the infinite cold. It's rough against your skin, a constant reminder of the poverty that defines your existence. This single piece of fabric is one of your most valuable possessions, a tattered inheritance of misery passed down, as threadbare as your hopes for a comfortable morning. Your brain, sluggish from the cold and a lack of proper sleep, begins a slow, primal calculation. It's not about work, not about food, not even about your family sleeping beside you. The first, most urgent question of the day is this: are my toes still attached? You try to send a signal from your brain to your feet, a simple command to wiggle them. Nothing happens. There is no sensation, just a dull, distant pressure where your feet should be. You try again, concentrating all your will on those 10 small appendages at the far end of your body. You feel a faint, disconnected twitch. They're still there, but they feel like 10 frozen pebbles, lifeless and foreign, sealed inside the rags wrapped around your feet. The fear is real and immediate. You've seen men lose their toes, then their feet, to the silent, creeping death of frostbite. It starts with this exact feeling of numbness, this cold indifference where there should be feeling. For now, you are whole, but it's a temporary state. A small victory in a war you're destined to lose piece by piece. This is not a simple cold snap. This is January in medieval Europe. Winter isn't just a season here, it is a 6-month siege, a long, slow war of attrition against the human body. Your home, this one-room hovel, is your only fortress, and its defences are laughable. There is no such thing as insulation. The walls are a rickety frame of wood woven with twigs and plastered with a mixture of mud and dung, a style known as wattle and daub. It has cracked and crumbled in 100 places, leaving gaps for the wind to whistle through. There is no glass in the window openings. Those are stuffed with more rags or wooden shutters that fit poorly, creating yet another set of drafts. The floor beneath you is not wood or stone, it is just dirt, packed down by the feet of your family and frozen solid as pavement. The cold doesn't just come through the walls, it rises from the very ground you live on, ensuring there is no escape. The concept of a warm, sealed-off space is a fantasy reserved for nobles in their stone castles, a world away from this frozen reality. You're not alone in this one-room paradise. You share this space with your entire family. Your wife and 2 small children are huddled together a few feet away, a shivering pile of limbs under another sorry excuse for a blanket. Their faint, shallow breaths are part of the room's quiet, miserable soundtrack. But there are more than just human occupants. For extra warmth, and because there is nowhere else for it to go, you also share your home with the family goat. The goat is a blessing and a curse. It is a living furnace, its body radiating a steady animal heat that is undeniably more effective than your pathetic fire. On the coldest nights, the children huddle against its flank, but it also smells. The strong, musky odour of the goat is a permanent feature of the hut, permeating your clothes, your hair, and the very air you breathe. It shifts in its sleep, its hooves scraping softly against the frozen dirt floor. You listen to its breathing, a steady, rhythmic sound that is, in its own way, reassuring. At least it's alive. For now. In this world, the most pressing job of the day, the one that precedes all others, is a simple, desperate one: to not die in the next 5 minutes. It is a remarkably low bar for success, yet it is one that many in your village will fail to clear before the sun properly rises. Survival is measured not in years or days, but in these small, agonizing increments of time. Every minute you continue to breathe is a minute you have won against the overwhelming forces of nature that want you dead. The wind, your constant tormentor, keeps whispering through the cracks in the wattle and daub walls. It's not a violent howl, but a low, conspiratorial murmur, a mocking reminder that you and your pathetic wooden box are losing the battle. It tells stories of the world outside, a world of endless snow and frozen stillness, a world where everything has wisely surrendered to the cold. Everything except you. The silence of the pre-dawn is profound, broken only by the chattering of your own teeth, an uncontrollable percussion of misery. Then another sound cuts through the quiet, the weak, miserable cough of your sleeping child. It is a wet, rattling sound that speaks of lungs filling with fluid, of a body too weak and too cold to fight off infection. You hear that sound every night, and with every cough, a knot of dread tightens in your gut. There is nothing you can do for the child, no medicine to give, no warmth to offer that you aren't already trying to provide. The silence that follows the cough is almost worse, filled with the unspoken fear of what it means. It is the sound of your family slowly, quietly succumbing to the season. Then, through the oppressive gloom, your eyes catch it. Across the room, there is a source of hope in this frozen hell. It is the faint, dying glow of embers in the central hearth. A handful of tiny orange specks flickering weakly in a bed of grey ash. That small light is a defiant spark in an ocean of darkness, a fragile promise of warmth. Getting to it is your first great quest of the day. A heroic journey doesn't involve dragons or enchanted swords. Your epic is a 10-foot crawl across a frozen dirt floor. You gather your stiff, aching limbs, preparing for the agonizingly slow journey, praying you don't freeze completely on the way. That faint orange glow from across the room isn't just a fire, it's your god. It is the one deity in your life that offers immediate, tangible proof of its existence, and like any god, it demands constant sacrifice. The problem is, you're almost completely out of offerings. Your god is about to abandon you, to flicker out and leave you in the cold, unforgiving dark. What do you do when the centre of your universe is about to die? You crawl towards it, a desperate supplicant on a pilgrimage across a frozen floor. Your knees ache, and your hands are numb against the hard-packed earth, but you finally reach the central fire pit. It's not much of a hearth, just a shallow depression dug into the dirt floor, ringed with a few stones to keep the embers from wandering off. And in that pit, a few precious embers remain, glowing a faint, tired orange. They are clinging to life with the same stubborn desperation that you are. Your job, the most important job in the world right now, is to coax them back from the dead, to perform a resurrection with nothing but your own breath and a prayer. You look at your meagre pile of firewood. There are only a few precious sticks left, gathered with great effort and risk, and they are supposed to last you for the rest of the week. Taking one of those sticks now feels like a catastrophic financial decision. It feels like spending your entire life savings on a single lottery ticket, a wild gamble against impossible odds. But the alternative is unthinkable. If the fire dies completely, you will have no way to relight it. There are no matches, no lighters. You would have to beg for a burning ember from a neighbour, a humiliating act of dependence that assumes their fire is still alive. If the fire dies, the cold will reclaim this hut in minutes. If the fire dies, you all die. It's not really a choice. You reach for a stick, your numb fingers fumbling with the cold wood. The decision is made. The sacrifice must be paid. And let's be perfectly clear about something. This firewood isn't free. The concept of picking up sticks from the ground for personal use is a fantasy. The forests and everything in them belong to the Lord of the Manor. He owns the trees, the ground they grow on, and even the fallen branches that litter the forest floor. If you are caught gathering wood from his land, the act is called poaching, and the punishment is swift and brutal. It could be a public whipping in the freezing village square, your back laid open for the crime of wanting to be warm. It could be a fine so impossibly large that you would be in debt for the rest of your short, miserable life. In some places, for a repeat offence, you could literally be executed, hanged for trying to keep your children from freezing to death. Every stick in your small pile represents a risk, a dance with the law where the penalty for losing is your life. This isn't just fuel, it's contraband. You carefully place some dried moss and slivers of bark around the dying embers, creating a small, hopeful nest. Then you get down on the frozen dirt, your face close to the ash, and you begin to blow. You blow gently, carefully, your own frozen breath now becoming a tool of creation. A thin wisp of smoke curls upwards, and you inhale it gratefully. It stings your eyes, making them water. It catches in the back of your throat, making you want to cough. The smoke begins to fill the small, unventilated hut. There is no chimney here, just a small hole in the thatched roof that does a poor job of letting the smoke out. Soon, the air is thick and grey, a choking haze that coats your lungs with a fine layer of soot. To a modern nose, it would be an unbearable toxic stench. To you, this is the smell of life. It's the smell of success, the perfume of survival. Every stinging breath is a reminder that you have, for now, cheated death. This small, smoky fire is for so much more than just warmth. In the pre-dawn darkness, it is the only source of light, the tiny sun around which your family's world revolves. It is the only way you will be able to cook the miserable slop that you call food, to turn frozen roots or bits of bark into something warm and chewable. And the fire is your only real defence against the things that live in the dark. It keeps the wolves at bay, both the literal ones that you can sometimes hear howling in the distant snow-covered forests, and the metaphorical ones. The wolves of fear, of despair, of the crushing, silent loneliness of winter. The flickering light is a shield, a weak but essential barrier that holds the vast, terrifying darkness of the world outside at a safe distance. Without it, the night would swallow you whole. Your wife and children are huddled together a few feet away, a silent, shivering audience to this sacred ritual. They watch you with wide, dark eyes, their faces pale in the faint, growing glow. They don't speak, they don't move, they just watch, their complete and total survival, resting on your ability to make a flame appear from almost nothing. You are the high priest of this small, sad cult, and they are your silent congregation. Their faith is absolute because it has to be. The pressure is immense. You are not just nurturing a fire, you are nurturing the fragile hope of your entire family, blowing on the embers of their collective will to live. If the fire goes out for good, the damp, penetrating chill will immediately creep back in. It will feel like a physical presence, a malevolent spirit reclaiming its territory. It will saturate the blankets, seep into the straw of your bedding, and wind its icy fingers around your bodies. The cold doesn't kill you quickly. It's a slow, patient hunter. It drains your strength, numbs your mind, and gently lulls you into a final, frozen sleep. People froze to death in their own beds all the time, huddled right next to their families for a warmth that simply wasn't enough. One person's heart would stop, and the others, too weak to move them, would simply lie next to the cooling body, hoping to draw out the last bit of residual heat before their own time came. But then a small miracle happens. A tiny, uncertain flame licks up from the moss and touches the new piece of wood. It flickers, dances, and for a terrifying second, It seems to shrink back into nothing. You hold your breath. Then it catches. The wood begins to glow, then hiss, and finally a small, steady flame is born. You have not triumphed. You have merely postponed the inevitable. This is not some grand victory over the forces of nature. You have simply reset the hourglass, buying your family another day of life. This small, smoky, inefficient fire is your only victory for the morning, a tiny beacon of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. Now that you have successfully staved off hypothermia for another hour or so, a new and equally urgent crisis makes itself known. Your stomach growls, a hollow, aching sound. It's time for breakfast. With the fire now a smoky, struggling reality, your stomach makes a noise. It's a low, hollow rumble, a hopeful, optimistic sound from a part of your body that clearly hasn't gotten the memo about your current situation. Your stomach remembers autumn, when there were grains and root vegetables. It remembers summer, when there might have been berries. Your stomach is a fool, an optimist living in the past, and it is about to be brutally, profoundly disappointed. What's for breakfast in the dead of winter, 2 months after the last of the real food ran out? The answer is not something you eat, but something you endure. You turn your attention from the fire to the heavy iron cooking pot suspended over it on a hook. This pot has been hanging here for weeks, possibly since the last harvest. It contains pottage, the famous medieval forever stew. In better times, it's a thick, hearty slurry of barley, beans, and whatever vegetables could be pulled from the garden. New ingredients are simply added to the old, creating a perpetual evolving meal. But this is not better times. This is the deep, dark heart of winter, and the version of pottage simmering in that pot is something else entirely. It's different. You lift the crude wooden lid, and a puff of steam escapes, carrying a scent that is both earthy and deeply sad. You peer inside. The liquid is a thin, greyish-brown, and there is nothing recognisable floating in it. There are no plump vegetables, no hearty grains, no life-giving beans. Those were a distant luxury, gone by November, consumed with a speed that felt reckless at the time but was driven by sheer, gnawing hunger. The last of the dried cabbage and withered onions are now just a faint memory, a ghost of flavour in a pot full of despair. Today's special ingredient, the star of the show, is tree bark. Specifically, the soft inner layer of elm or birch, which you spent an hour yesterday stripping from a half-dead tree you found at the edge of the woods. You have boiled it for hours, hoping the heat and water would transform it into something resembling food. It hasn't. It's still just woody strips floating in hot water, softened just enough that you can pretend it's edible. It has the nutritional value of a wet stick, but it fills the empty space in your belly, and right now, that is all that matters. On some days, if you feel you can afford the luxury, the menu changes. On a lucky day, you might have boiled shoe leather. You have an old pair of shoes, worn through at the soles, that you save for such occasions. You cut off a small strip, drop it into the pottage and let it simmer until it's pliable. This gives the watery broth the faint phantom illusion of protein, a whisper of meatiness that only makes the hunger worse. Chewing on it provides a significant jaw workout, a long, laborious process of gnawing on something that refuses to be broken down. It tastes of old leather, mud, and the crushing weight of your own failure to provide. It tastes like despair. But today is not a shoe leather day. Today is a bark day, and as a special treat you're adding a garnish. From a small, carefully tied cloth pouch, you retrieve the last of your family's treasure. It's not gold, not silver. It's a small handful of dried peas saved from the harvest. You pour them into the palm of your hand and begin the morning's most solemn ritual. You're rationing these peas like they are flawless jewels from a distant king's treasury. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 pea for each member of your family. This is not a meal, it is a ceremony of managed starvation. As you perform this ritual, you are being watched. Your 2 children are now awake, huddled together, their eyes wide with a hunger that has become a permanent part of their expression. It's a deep, vacant look that seems to have extinguished the light of childhood from their faces. They track your every movement, their gaze fixed on your hands, on the pot, on the promise of something, anything to eat. Their begging isn't loud or demanding. They don't have the energy for that. It's a quiet, soul-crushing whimper that barely qualifies as sound, a constant low hum of misery that underscores every moment of your waking life. They're too young to understand the complexities of seasons and harvests. They only understand the relentless emptiness in their stomachs, a pain that never goes away. You look at them, and you feel the familiar mix of love and a profound, bone-deep sense of shame. You are a father, you are supposed to provide, and you are failing. And just when you think the situation cannot get any more absurd, here comes a fun little twist from the church. Today is a fasting day. In its infinite wisdom, the church has forbidden the consumption of meat or animal fats, including things like butter, cheese, or lard, for nearly half of the entire year. This includes all of Lent, every Friday, and a smattering of other holy days. The rule was likely written by a well-fed monk in a stone monastery, a man whose idea of hardship was having to eat fish instead of roasted pork. Imagine being told, no bacon, at the very moment your body is actively cannibalizing its own muscle tissue just to keep your heart beating. The cosmic irony is so thick you could almost scoop it out of the air and put it in your bowl, which frankly sounds more nutritious and certainly more flavorful than what is actually in your bowl. You're starving to death, but you must do so in a way that is compliant with God's law. You ladle the grey, watery stew into 4 wooden bowls. The single boiled pea in each bowl looks comically small and lonely, a tiny green island in a sea of brownish water. You hand a bowl to your wife, whose face is a mask of weary resignation. You give the other 2 to your children, who immediately begin to drink the warm liquid, their small hands shaking. The meal provides a fleeting flicker of warmth that travels from your throat to your stomach, but it provides 0 actual nutrition. There are no calories to speak of, no vitamins, no proteins. The entire goal of this breakfast is not to energize you. It's not to strengthen you. It is simply to trick your stomach into shutting up for a few hours, to fill the void with something warm and wet so the hunger pangs will subside, at least for a little while. This pathetic concoction, this boiled bark and regret, is the only fuel you will have for a full day of hard, back-breaking labour out in the freezing cold. Good luck. Your food stores are not merely low, they have become a battlefield. This isn't a war you're winning. Every day you are fighting a multi-front campaign against enemies you can't see and enemies you can. You fight against dampness, which turns your grain to mush. You fight against mould, which paints your food in shades of green and black. And you fight against time itself, which patiently rots everything you own. But those are invisible forces. You have other opponents, ones with whiskers and beady eyes. You have roommates, you see. And the most infuriating part of it all is that these uninvited, freeloading roommates are eating much, much better than you are. Who are these plump, successful freeloaders feasting in the darkness of your own home? You're about to have your daily confrontation with them. After the bleak ceremony of your morning breakfast of boiled bark, you move to the corner of the hut that serves as your pantry. This is where you take stock of what little you have left to defend. There isn't much. There is a small burlap sack of rye grain, maybe a quarter full, tied shut at the top. It represents the last of your family's carbohydrates until the next harvest, which is a lifetime away. Hanging from the low, smoky rafters are a few salted fish, stiff as boards and coated in a crust of salt. In a large wooden barrel near the wall, something sits submerged in a murky brine. You hope it is pickled cabbage, but you haven't been brave enough to look too closely for a few weeks. This pathetic collection is your entire worldly wealth. It's the treasure you must guard with your life, the flimsy barricade standing between your family and total starvation. Your heart sinks. As you get closer to the grain sack, you notice it. A fresh hole chewed through the thick burlap near the bottom of the sack. A small pile of precious kernels is scattered on the frozen dirt floor. Rats. Of course, it's rats. They are your constant, ever-present companions, a silent, shadowy society that thrives in the margins of your own miserable existence. They live in the thatch of your roof. Their scratching sounds a constant lullaby of theft. They have dug intricate networks of tunnels under your dirt floor, creating a thriving metropolis of rodents just beneath your feet. And most importantly, they live inside your food. They are bolder in winter, driven by the same gnawing hunger that you feel, but they are infinitely more successful at satisfying it. You never see them during the day. They are creatures of the night, emerging from the darkness to pilfer your meagre supplies while you and your family sleep, too cold and exhausted to defend your stores. The evidence of their nightly raids is everywhere. Their droppings mixed in with your grain, Their teeth marks on your barrel and now this, a fresh wound in your last bag of rye, bleeding your future onto the floor. You stare at the hole, and a wave of impotent rage washes over you, quickly followed by a sense of weary defeat. The truth is, the rats are healthier than you are. They are fatter, they are more successful. Their coats are sleek and full, not thin and patchy like your own family's hair. Their movements are quick and confident, not slow and shuffling like yours. They are living their absolute best life on the very precipice of your family's starvation, and there is almost nothing you can do about it. You're bigger, you're smarter, at least in theory, but they have the advantage of numbers, of speed, and of a complete and total lack of morality. They are the perfect survivalists, and in the brutal ecosystem of your one-room hut, you're slowly losing the evolutionary race. They are a constant gnawing reminder of your own failure, a furry, squeaking personification of the world's indifference to your suffering. Every stolen grain is a small victory for them, and another nail in your coffin. Food preservation was an art form, a folk science born of pure, raw desperation. With no refrigeration and no sterile canning methods, you had to get creative to make the bounty of the autumn harvest last through the long, lean months of winter. You smoked, salted, dried, and pickled everything you could possibly get your hands on. You smoked the fish and the meagre strips of meat, hanging them in the chimney until they were blackened, dry, and tasted mostly of soot. You salted everything else, burying cuts of pork in barrels of precious salt, hoping the mineral would draw out the moisture and keep the decay at bay. You dried fruits and herbs, laying them out on cloths, praying they would shrivel before they rotted. And you pickled, submerging vegetables in barrels of brine and vinegar, trusting that the acidic liquid would kill whatever wanted to grow in there. You tried to preserve everything, including your own fading hopes and dreams. Every preserved item was a small bet against the future, a desperate attempt to trap a moment of autumn abundance in a jar or a sack. But this was a terrifying game of chance, a nightly round of culinary Russian roulette. Did this cabbage ferment correctly into sour, edible sauerkraut, or has it turned into a slimy, toxic vessel of botulism? Is this slab of salted meat just incredibly salty, or has it become a host for a legion of deadly bacteria that will tie your intestines in knots and kill you from the inside out? There was no way to know for sure. Every bite of preserved food was a gamble. You would open a container and sniff. Does it smell right? What exactly is right supposed to smell like? The line between pleasantly tangy and dangerously rotten was impossibly thin, and hunger had a way of convincing you to take risks. You would take a small bite and wait, your heart pounding, wondering if you had just ingested your own death warrant. The spectre of food poisoning haunted every winter meal. You reach up and take down one of the salted fish from the rafters. It feels light and brittle in your hands. You bring it to your nose and sniff. It smells overwhelmingly of salt. But underneath that, there is another smell. It's faint, but it's there. A sharp, slightly sweet odour that is not entirely right. It's the smell of something beginning to turn, the first hint of decay fighting its way through the protective layer of salt. Your stomach churns, partly from hunger, partly from fear. A sensible person, a person not on the brink of starvation, would throw it away immediately. But you're not a sensible person. You're a hungry person. You look at your wife's thin face, at your children's hollow eyes. Are you hungry enough to risk it? The answer's always, always yes. You will eat the fish, you will feed it to your family, and you will all pray that the off smell was just your imagination. Sometimes, though, very rarely, you get to exact a small measure of revenge. You fashion a crude trap, a simple deadfall made from a flat stone and a stick, baited with a single, precious grain of rye. And sometimes, you wake up to find it has worked. You have caught one of your tormentors. A dead rat is not a pest to be disposed of. It is a protein bonus. It is a windfall. It is meat. You skin it carefully, trying not to think about the diseases it might carry, and you toss it into the pottage pot. It will boil for hours, and the heat, you hope, will kill anything nasty. It will add a bit of substance, a bit of flavour, to the thin, watery broth. It is a small, grim victory in a long and losing war. As you stir the pot, you just have to pray that it wasn't the exact same one that was nibbling on the frozen corpse of the neighbour who died down the lane last week. That's a thought you have to push away, deep into the recesses of your mind where all the other horrors live. You look back at the hole in the grain sack. The anger has faded now, replaced by a deep, weary sense of resignation. You accept the inevitable loss from the precious grain sack. The rats have taken their share. This isn't just your home. You're beginning to understand that it is a shared ecosystem of decay. You, your family, the goat, the lice, and the rats. You are all in this together, competing for the same scarce resources in a closed, failing system. The rats are simply better at this game than you are. You kneel down on the frozen floor and begin the painstaking process of picking up the spilled kernels of rye, one by one, and putting them back in the sack. Each one is a tiny treasure you cannot afford to lose. After gathering what you can, you find a small flat stone and use it to plug the hole in the burlap. You wedge it in tight, maybe tying a bit of string around it to hold it in place. You know, with absolute certainty, that this is a completely futile gesture. It is an act of defiance that will accomplish nothing. The rats will find a way. They will chew a new hole right next to the old one. They will climb to the top of the sack and gnaw their way in from there. They will not be stopped. Patching the hole is just a ritual, something you do to feel like you have some small measure of control over your own fate. But you know the truth. The rats will be back tonight. They always are. Now that you are fed, with the phantom warmth of boiled bark lingering in your stomach, it is time to earn your right to live another day. As the man of this hovel, your duty is to leave the relative safety of the smoky hut and face the frozen hellscape that waits just outside your door. It is a world that does not want you in it, a landscape actively trying to kill you. What does a day of hard winter labour look like when your tools are frozen solid and your fingers have long since stopped feeling anything at all? It looks like a slow, painful and often pointless struggle against an enemy that can never get tired. There is no joy in this work, no sense of accomplishment waiting for you at the end of the day. There is only the grim, relentless necessity of it. You do it because if you don't, everything collapses. Your family starves, you all freeze, the stakes are absolute, and so the work must be done, no matter how much your body screams in protest. The cold air hits you like a physical blow as you prepare to step outside. First, you pull on your shoes. The word shoes is a generous term for what you wear on your feet. They are little more than scraps of hardened leather and stiff cloth, barely holding together, all tied to your ankles with bits of frayed string. They are perpetually damp. They were damp yesterday, they are damp today, and they will be damp tomorrow. The concept of a dry shoe is a forgotten luxury, a distant memory from a kinder season. As you force your cold, numb feet into them, the clammy chill seeps instantly into your skin, a miserable feeling that you have become all too familiar with. It is a cold that feels personal, a wet and clinging cold that promises to stay with you all day. Next to the door you grab your axe. The oaken handle is slick with a thin, almost invisible layer of ice. The cold of it shocks your bare hand, a sharp, biting pain that feels like a burn. You grip it tightly, your fingers already protesting, already losing what little feeling they had left. This axe is your most important tool. It is your weapon, your means of providing warmth, and today it will feel like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Your main job, the most immediate and thankless task, is to keep the great beast of winter at bay. The snow that fell during the night has drifted against your hut, piling up in a solid white wall that is now higher than your door. You are, in effect, buried alive. To fight this, you use your shovel. Like your shoes, your shovel is a sad imitation of the real thing. It is not made of metal. It is just a flat piece of rough wood, smoothed down on one side with another piece of wood attached to serve as a handle. It is more of a suggestion than a proper shovel. You begin to work, pushing and scraping at the dense, heavy snow. It's a slow, agonizing process. With each push, you're moving a weight that your underfed body can barely handle. The sharp wind joins the fight, catching the loose snow you throw aside and blowing it right back into your face, stinging your eyes and sticking to your beard and eyelashes. You're not just digging, you're in a direct physical confrontation with the weather itself, and you are losing. Once you have carved a narrow trench out from your door, your next task is to inspect your home's defences. It means checking the wattle and daub walls of your hut, making a slow, careful circle around the small structure. The work is crucial. The relentless wind has been searching for weaknesses all night, and it has found them. You find several new holes, small gaps and cracks where the mud plaster has crumbled away, leaving the woven lattice of twigs exposed. Through these holes, the wind is whistling a quiet, mocking tune. If you leave them, the wind will tear at them, making them bigger and bigger until the entire wall section gives way, and the whole fragile structure comes tumbling down. To fix this, you go to a wooden bucket where you keep your patching material, a premixed slurry of mud, straw, and frozen animal dung. It is frozen solid. You use the butt of your axe to chip out a few chunks, then hold them in your bare hands, trying to warm them with your own body heat, until they are soft enough to work with. Then, with your numb fingers, you smear the freezing, foul-smelling paste into the cracks, a grotesque form of masonry that is essential for your survival. And then there is the most vital chore of all. It means chopping more wood. If you don't bring back more wood, the fire will die tonight, and that is a fate you cannot allow. You approach a small log that you managed to drag back from the woods last week. You plant your feet as firmly as you can on the icy ground and swing the heavy axe. Your arms are weak from hunger, nearly devoid of strength. The swing is clumsy. There is no satisfying crack as the blade bites deep into the wood. Instead, it lands with a dull, jarring thud. The impact sends a painful shockwave rushing up the handle, through your frozen hands and into the aching bones of your arms. It is a violent, unpleasant sensation that you feel with every single swing. Your fingers, now completely numb and useless, can barely maintain their grip on the icy handle. They feel like foreign objects, clumsy things you can no longer control. You have to concentrate with all your might just to make sure you don't drop the axe or swing it into your own leg. Every piece of wood you manage to split feels like a monumental victory. You also have to haul water. The household supply, kept in a bucket inside, is nearly gone. This means a long, slow trip to the village well, or worse, the river. You arrive to find the surface of the water covered in a thick layer of ice. You have to use your axe again, this time to smash and hack at the ice, chipping away until you have created a hole large enough to fit your bucket through. Then comes the hard part. You lower one heavy wooden bucket down, let it fill with the frigid water, and then haul it back up, hand over agonizing hand. The bucket feels impossibly heavy. Then you do it again with a second bucket. You place a wooden yoke across your aching shoulders to carry the two buckets back to the hut. You walk slowly, trying to keep your balance on the snow-covered, uneven ground. It's useless. With every other step you stumble, and freezing water sloshes out of the buckets, spilling down your legs and instantly soaking through your thin wool leggings. The water is so cold it feels like fire against your skin, and you know it will freeze to the cloth in minutes, encasing your legs in a sheath of ice. The cold is relentless. It is not just on the surface of your skin anymore. It has seeped through your thin tunic, through your flesh, and has found its way into your very bones. It is a deep, permanent, gnawing ache that you can never escape. For a moment, you stop your work. You stand still in the middle of the bleak, white landscape, the only moving thing in a frozen world. You look out at the grey sky, the endless fields of snow, the skeletal black shapes of the distant trees. There is no colour, there is no sound, there is no life. And in that moment of stillness, a terrible thought creeps into your mind. You wonder if spring is even real. You try to remember what the world looks like when it is green, what the sun feels like when it is warm on your skin. The memories feel distant and unreal, like a story someone told you a long time ago. Maybe spring is just a myth. Maybe it is just a hopeful lie that people tell their children to help them get through the darkness. Maybe this is the world now. Just this. Forever. This is not work for progress or for profit. You're not building anything that will last. You're not creating a better life for your children. You're not accumulating wealth. Every swing of the axe, every shovelful of snow, every patched hole is not an act of construction. It is an act of prevention. All of this back-breaking labour is part of a desperate daily ballet performed for an audience of one. Survival. You're simply fighting to keep your tiny, fragile world from collapsing in on itself for one more day. You shovel the snow so you're not entombed. You patch the wall so the wind doesn't tear your home apart. You chop the wood so your family doesn't freeze in their sleep. You haul the water so you don't die of thirst. It is the frantic, endless labour of simply staying in one place, of treading water in a sea of ice. You're working yourself to death just for the privilege of waking up tomorrow and doing it all over again. After hours of this punishing work, you're done. The weak sun is already beginning its descent towards the horizon. You have cleared a narrow path from your door, though the wind is already trying to fill it back in. You have patched the worst of the holes in the wall, though you know new ones will appear tomorrow. You have gathered a pitifully small pile of freshly chopped wood, barely enough to see you through the night. You look at what you have done and you feel no pride, no satisfaction. You have not accomplished anything. You have not gained any ground. You have simply managed to reset the timer on your family's demise. You have bought another rotation of the earth, another short reprieve from the inevitable. That is the only victory you will get today. You head back inside, deeply exhausted, colder than when you left, and smelling faintly of sweat, wood smoke, and frozen manure. Winter is not just an external enemy that batters the walls of your hut. It's an internal one. Once it gets inside your clothes and under your skin, it goes to work, attacking your body from the inside out, piece by miserable piece. It is a slow, methodical siege, and your own biology is the battlefield. How exactly does a human body break down when it's perpetually cold, perpetually damp, and perpetually malnourished? It does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, in stages. A quiet and agonizing surrender that you are forced to witness every single day. The war against the cold is not just fought with firewood and patched walls. It is fought in your own blood and bone. You're sitting by the fire, what little there is of it, trying to warm your feet after a long day of work in the snow. You hold them close to the embers, so close that you should feel the intense heat. But you don't. Your feet don't feel cold anymore, which should be a good thing, but it's not. They don't feel anything at all. They are curiously numb, just two useless lumps of flesh at the end of your legs. You pull off the damp rags that serve as your socks and you look down. Your skin is a canvas of misery. Angry, puffy blotches of red and purple cover your toes and the sides of your feet. These are chilblains, the first and most common calling card of the cold. They are the result of your small blood vessels being damaged by repeated exposure to the damp cold. They itch with a deep, maddening intensity, and then they ache with a dull, burning pain. It is your body's first distress signal, the first clear sign that it is losing the war against the elements. Your skin has become a roadmap of your suffering. It is a document written in cracks, sores, and blood. The skin on your hands especially is a disaster. The backs of your hands are dry and scaly, and your knuckles are split wide open from the combination of the freezing air and the rough, repetitive work of chopping wood and hauling buckets. These are not clean cuts. They are deep, raw fissures that refuse to heal. Every time you make a fist or grip a tool, the cuts tear open again, sending a fresh, sharp wave of pain through your hands. They use a thin, clear fluid that crusts over, only to be broken again the next day. Small sores have appeared on your arms and legs, little ulcers that should have healed weeks ago but stubbornly refuse to close. Your body, weakened by hunger, simply doesn't have the resources to repair itself anymore. Every movement you make is accompanied by a low-level, grinding pain, a constant reminder of your own physical decay. Then there is the cough. Everyone has the cough. It is the official anthem of winter. It is a deep, wet, rattling sound that echoes in the cramped, smoky space of the hut day and night. It's the sound of your child coughing in their sleep, a small, weak sound that tears at your heart. It's the sound of your wife turning over, trying to muffle a hacking fit in the thin blanket. It is the sound of your own lungs, struggling against the cold, damp air you breathe and the constant smoke from the fire pit. This is not a simple winter cold. This is a serious respiratory infection, something like bronchitis or pneumonia, taking root in lungs that have been weakened by months of malnutrition and stress. There is no medicine to stop it. There is no doctor to consult. You can only listen to the sound of your family slowly drowning from the inside, and you pray that their bodies will somehow find the strength to fight it off. The cough is a constant, audible reminder of the invisible sickness that fills the air you all share. Your feet, which are permanently trapped in those pathetic damp shoes, have become a breeding ground for something far worse than chilblains. After weeks of being wet and cold, the skin on your feet has begun to change. It is pale, almost greyish-white, and feels soft and spongy to the touch. It is swollen and puffy, and it has started to develop a faint, sweet, rotten smell. This is trench foot. It is the slow, quiet rotting of your own flesh. The constant dampness has destroyed the skin and the tissue beneath it. You are, in the most literal sense, losing your feet while they are still attached to your body. Soon, the skin will begin to blister and peel away, leaving raw, weeping sores underneath. If it continues, the decay will reach the bone, and the foot will have to be cut off to save your life. It is a horrifying, slow-motion amputation, delivered by your own soggy shoes. Frostbite is the silent reaper. It is colder and quieter than trench foot. It does not come with a cough or a smell. It arrives without any drama at all. It simply claims what it wants and moves on. It targets the parts of you that are furthest from the warm core of your body. Your fingers, your toes, the tip of your nose, the lobes of your ears. There is no sudden, sharp pain. There is only that familiar growing numbness, the feeling of a part of you simply ceasing to exist. One day you might be looking at your hand and notice that the tip of one of your fingers has turned a waxy pale yellow. It doesn't hurt. You can't feel it at all. A few days later, that same fingertip will turn dark, then black. The tissue has frozen solid, died, and begun to mummify. It is a small piece of you that has been conquered and killed by the cold. It will eventually dry up and fall off, leaving behind a scarred, shortened stump. There is nothing you can do about it. It is just another piece of your body that you have sacrificed to winter. Scabs and lice are your constant companions. You are infested. The tiny insects live in the seams of your single tunic and in your unwashed hair, and their bites create an endless, maddening itch. You scratch until you bleed. You can't help it. But every scratch from your filthy fingernails creates a new open wound, another tiny doorway for infection to enter your already weakened body. A small bite becomes a red, angry welt, which then becomes a weeping sore, which then becomes a hard, crusty scab. Your body is no longer a temple. It has become a besieged fortress, and the walls are crumbling. The attackers are everywhere, both outside and in. Every part of your physical being is under assault, and your defences are failing on every front, and in the darkest heart of winter an even more grotesque reality emerges. When someone in the family finally succumbs to the cold, to the cough, to starvation, their body is sometimes not removed from the bed right away. The dead are sometimes left there under the blankets for a day or two. Why? The reason is both horrifying and heartbreakingly practical. It is because a corpse, for a little while after death, is still a source of warmth. The body holds a residual heat, and in a hut where the temperature is well below freezing, that small amount of warmth is a precious resource. The living members of the family will huddle next to their dead loved one, trying to soak up the last vestiges of heat before the body turns as cold as the surrounding air. It is a desperate, unimaginable act of survival, a final tragic service that the dead provide for the living. It is a human body reduced to nothing more than a grotesque, heartbreaking hot water bottle. You're in a state of managed decay. You're not healthy, you're not well, you're simply for the moment not dead yet. Every dull ache in your joints, every itchy scab on your skin, every uncontrollable shiver that racks your body is a message, a bulletin from the front lines of the war that your body is fighting against the world. It is a war that you are slowly, inevitably losing. The constant, grinding physical suffering eventually becomes so normal that you almost stop noticing it. It fades into the background noise of your life, becoming as familiar as the sound of the wind, the smell of the smoke, or the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. It is the quiet, miserable soundtrack to your own slow-motion collapse. So your lungs feel like they're full of wet mud, and you're pretty sure that one of your toes is about to call it quits and fall off. Time to see a doctor, right? Wrong. That's your modern brain talking. In the middle of a medieval winter, what you call medicine is not a cure. It's just a new and much more interesting way to suffer. The options available to you are not designed to heal you. They are designed to make you feel like something is being done while your body either gives up or somehow manages to fix itself. It's a terrifying roll of the dice, and the house always wins. The situation has gotten worse. Your child's cough has turned into a fever. The child's skin is hot to the touch, and they are shivering uncontrollably under the thin wool blanket. You've given them sips of water, you've held them close, but nothing is working. The fever is getting worse. You are desperate. When you are this desperate, you do the only thing you can. You seek professional help. Your version of a professional is the village wise woman. She lives in a small hut on the edge of the village, a place surrounded by strange-smelling herbs hanging from the eaves. She knows about plants, about charms, about births, and about deaths. She's a respected figure, but her position is fragile. She's one bad harvest or one sick cow away from being accused of witchcraft. You approach her with a mixture of hope and fear, knowing that she is your only option. You explain the situation, your voice cracking with exhaustion and terror. The wise woman listens, her face grim. She nods slowly, her mind working through the ancient and profoundly flawed logic of her craft. She disappears into her hut and returns with her first suggestion: garlic. She hands you a string of dried garlic cloves and instructs you to hang it around the child's neck. The powerful smell, she explains, will ward off the evil spirits that have taken root in your child's body and are causing the sickness. You do it. You place the smelly necklace on your feverish child, your heart full of a desperate, foolish hope. Spoiler alert, the evil spirits, which are actually a bacterial lung infection, are not impressed by the garlic. The fever continues to climb. You go back to the wise woman. The garlic didn't work. She's not surprised. This just means the affliction is stronger than she thought. It's time to move on to the next option in her medical toolkit: bloodletting. The theory, as she explains it, is simple. A fever is a disease of heat. This means there is too much hot blood in the body, throwing the internal systems out of balance. The logical solution, therefore, is to remove some of that excess hot blood. So the plan is to intentionally drain some of the precious life force out of a small child who is already perilously weak and fighting for their life. This procedure is often done not by a physician but by the local barber. He's the one with the sharpest razors after all. He can fit you in for a quick bleeding right between a haircut and a shave. It makes perfect sense if you don't think about it at all. The barber makes a small cut on your child's arm and a thin trickle of blood runs into a bowl. The child cries weakly. You watch, horrified, as your child gets paler. The treatment is a success. Less blood now. The fever, however, rages on. Maybe a nice herbal poultice will do the trick. The wise woman prepares her special blend. It's a warm, damp mash of ingredients she gathered from the woods and the goat pen. It contains crushed moss, some dried leaves you don't recognise, and a healthy portion of fresh animal dung for its supposed healing properties. This concoction is then mixed together with a few mumbled prayers for good measure. She tells you to smear this paste onto your child's chest and cover it with a cloth. It's a warm, foul-smelling plaster of bacteria and hope. This remedy will almost certainly cause a nasty skin infection, adding a whole new layer of suffering to the ordeal. But at least you feel like you're doing something. You're no longer just a passive observer of your child's decline. You're an active participant in their torture. The core of all medieval medicine is a profound and spectacular misunderstanding of reality. They operate on a completely different set of rules. They believe that all sickness comes from one of three places. First, it could be miasma, which is just a fancy word for bad air. They believe that foul smells, like those from a swamp or a pile of rotting garbage, can carry disease into the body. Second, it could be an imbalance of your four humours. This is the central theory of all medicine. Your body is thought to contain four liquids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. A healthy person has these four liquids in perfect balance. Every illness is just one of these humours getting out of whack. Too much phlegm causes a cough. Too much black bile makes you sad. All treatments are designed to rebalance this internal soup. And third, the most likely cause of your suffering is that God is angry at you. He is personally upset with you for a sin you committed last Tuesday. Maybe you took his name in vain. Maybe you had an impure thought about your neighbour's wife. The illness is your punishment, a divine warning to get your soul in order. This is why the cure is so often spiritual. The priest is a more important medical professional than the wise woman. Have you tried praying harder? Are you absolutely sure you're kneeling correctly? Have you tried not dying? Perhaps you should confess all your sins right now, while a leech sucks on your eyeball to draw out the bad humours. These are not jokes. These are your actual medical options. In this world, there is no concept of germs. The idea that tiny, invisible creatures could be the cause of your child's fever is a fantasy. A story as wild as any tale of dragons. There are no antibiotics to fight the infection. There are no real painkillers, nothing to ease the suffering besides getting blind drunk on weak beer, or, if you're lucky, passing out from the pain itself. Your child's immune system is completely and utterly on its own. It is armed with a butter knife in the middle of a gunfight and it is losing badly. You're sent home from the wise woman's hut. The final diagnosis is in. It's demons. Or maybe it's just winter. The two are often interchangeable. The prescribed treatment is to hope for the best and pray to the right saint. The wise woman gives you a small, useless charm, a chicken bone tied with a red thread to hang over your child's bed. It will protect them, she says. Then she presents you with the bill. For her time, her wisdom, and her bag of garlic, you now owe her a chicken. A chicken you do not have. You have traded a non-existent bird for a useless cure. You walk back to your hovel, the useless charm clutched in your hand, and in that moment, a cold, terrifying realization washes over you. A dread far deeper than the winter chill. You realize that you are utterly, terrifyingly alone. There is no one to help you. There is no real cure. There is no medicine. There is only you, your faith, and the long, dark night ahead. You are powerless against this sickness. You're just a spectator watching a battle rage inside your own child's body. The only reliable cure, the only doctor you can truly trust, is spring, and it is months away. As the day finally ends, the work is done. Your body aches with a deep, familiar exhaustion. The family is gathered around the meagre fire, the only point of light and warmth in a universe of cold. You all huddle together, drawing close not out of affection, but out of pure animal necessity. This isn't a cozy, heartwarming scene from a storybook. This is a strategic, life-saving alliance against freezing to death. And this alliance comes with a certain aroma. It's been months since you felt properly clean. The entire concept of hygiene, as we know it, has been put on hold until further notice. Maybe until May. What does it really feel like to live, sleep and eat in a state of perpetual unavoidable grime? It feels normal. Let's talk about bathing. In short, you don't. The idea of taking off your clothes in a hut that is only slightly warmer than the outdoors, and then washing your body with a bucket of ice-cold water, is not just wildly uncomfortable. It is a direct invitation to death. People believed, with absolute certainty, that washing with water, especially hot water, was dangerous. It opened up the pores of your skin, they thought, creating tiny gateways that would allow disease and bad air, the dreaded miasma, to seep directly into your body. So, not bathing wasn't a sign of being lazy or dirty. In the twisted logic of the time, it was a very sound medical precaution. Staying dirty meant keeping your pores sealed, protecting you from the sicknesses that lurked in the winter air. You were safer covered in a protective layer of your own filth, and you were definitely, completely covered. By this point in the winter, you are caked in a thick, semi-permanent layer of grime that has been slowly accumulating since the last warm days of October. This layer is a complex stratigraphy of your life. It is made of the dirt from the fields, the soot from the fire that hangs in the air and settles on everything, and the dried sweat from your daily labour. This is your winter coat. It's an extra layer of insulation that you wear right on your skin. You don't think about it. You don't notice it. It is simply a part of who you are, as natural as the hair on your head or the calluses on your hands. To be clean would be to feel naked and vulnerable. Of course, you're not alone in your filth. You have guests, permanent ones. Lice are a given. They are not a sign of extreme poverty or neglect. They are a universal fact of life. Everyone has them. You have them. Your wife has them. Your children have them. The priest in the village has them under his robes, and the noble lord in his draughty castle has them in his fancy tunic. Scratching yourself in public is as common and as socially acceptable as breathing or coughing. You will see the blacksmith pause his work to have a good, long scratch under his arm. You will see women in the market scratching their scalps while they gossip. It's a constant, low-level torment, an itch that can never be fully satisfied. It is a shared social activity, a universal language of discomfort that connects everyone, rich and poor alike. And then there is the smell. The body odour in the small enclosed space of the hut is, to put it mildly, breathtaking. If you could bottle it, no army would ever stand against you. Think of it as a kind of medieval fondue, a rich, complex bouquet with several distinct notes. The base note is stale, unwashed human sweat. Layered on top of that is the sharp, gamey smell of wet wool, a material that never fully dries and holds odours for eternity. Swirling through it all is the strong, musky barnyard perfume of the unwashed goat that shares your tiny living space. And underneath it all, there is the faint, unmistakable scent of deep despair. Scented candles have not been invented yet, and even if they had been, they would have probably taken one sniff of the air in your hut and just surrendered. melting into a puddle of wax and sorrow. Your clothing contributes heavily to this personal atmosphere. You own one tunic, that's it. This single garment is your entire wardrobe. You have worn it every single day without fail since the weather turned cold. It is made of rough, scratchy wool, and by now it is stiff with accumulated filth. It is stained with mud, with soot, and with the drips of countless bowls of watery pottage. It smells of smoke, sweat, and old food. You sleep in it. You work in it. You will probably die in it. It is no longer just a piece of clothing. It has become a part of you, a second skin that you can never shed. It is as much a part of your identity as your own name. At night, the final and most intimate expression of this shared filth takes place. The whole family, you, your wife, your children, plus the goat, and maybe a few of the chickens that you brought inside to keep them from freezing, all cram themselves together under the same greasy, heavy blanket. The bed is just a pile of straw on the floor, and the blanket is likely a haven for an entire civilization of fleas and other insects. There is no privacy. There is no concept of personal space. There is just a communal pile of human and animal warmth, a tangle of limbs and bodies pressed together against the cold. You can feel your child's breath on your neck, your wife's hair against your cheek, and the solid, warm flank of the goat pressed against your back. It is a dense, breathing, itching, coughing mound of life. But here is the most important thing to understand. This is not seen as disgusting. It is not seen as a hardship. It is seen as normal. This is simply what life is. This shared filth, this complete and absolute lack of boundaries, is actually a strange and grotesque form of intimacy. The smells are your family's smells. The lice are your family's lice. The shared body heat is the only thing keeping your children's hearts beating through the long frozen night. This is a bond, a necessary and powerful connection, forged in grime and shared misery. It is a grotesque but essential partnership that keeps you all alive. It is the intimacy of survival. You close your eyes, ready for a few hours of uneasy rest before you have to do it all again. You drift off to sleep to the familiar sounds of your world. The faint rhythmic scratching of your wife's fingernails on her arms, the wet rattling cough of your youngest child, and the soft, steady grinding sound of the goat chewing its cud in the darkness beside you. You're all wrapped together in a comforting, familiar cloud of your collective stink. The day is finally done. The punishing work is over, at least until the sun comes up again. Your stomach is a hollow, aching void, and every muscle in your body screams with a dull, persistent pain. The only thing left to do now is endure the long, dark night. But the physical challenges of the day, as brutal as they are nothing compared to the challenge that comes with the darkness. The real fight begins now. This is the fight to survive the crushing, silent darkness of your own mind. There is a reason you stay up as late as your firewood will allow. Sleep offers a brief escape, but the moments before sleep are filled with a terror all their own. Your small family is gathered around the smoky fire, the tiny flame casting long, dancing shadows on the mud walls. This little circle of light is your entire world. Beyond it is a universe of absolute blackness. Outside, the wind howls, a low, mournful sound like a hungry animal circling your hut. The gnawing emptiness in your belly is a constant physical presence, a reminder of your failure to find enough food. But worse than the wind, worse than the hunger, is the silence. It is a thick, heavy, deafening silence that presses in on you from all sides. In this silence, you can hear yourself think, and your thoughts, in the dead of winter, are not your friends. This is when the psychological toll of your existence hits the hardest. It's not just one thing, it's everything, all at once. It's the profound, suffocating isolation. Your village is small, and in the deep snow travel to the next village is impossible. You are cut off from the rest of the world, trapped in this small, frozen bubble of misery. And inside that bubble, you are trapped inside your own head. The gnawing dread that spring will never ever come back is a constant companion. You tell yourself it will, but the thought feels like a lie. After months of unrelenting cold and grey, the idea of a green leaf or a warm sun feels like a distant fantasy. This unending gloom seeps into your soul. They didn't have a word for what you're feeling. The word depression doesn't exist yet. They called it melancholia, a sickness caused by an excess of black bile. Or more commonly, they called it an affliction of demons. They believed that your sadness was a literal demonic presence, whispering poison into your ear. To fight these demons, both the real and the imaginary, you tell stories. It is the only form of entertainment you have. There are no books, no music, no games. There is only the human voice, the flickering fire, and the shared imagination of your family. This is your only escape. But the stories you tell are not the ones you might imagine. There are no tales of brave knights rescuing fair maidens from towers. There are no stories with happy endings. Your reality is too grim for such fantasies. To tell a story about a great feast or a warm castle would be a form of torture, a cruel reminder of everything you do not have. So your stories are cut from the same dark, coarse cloth as your own lives. You tell stories about the saints, but your saints are not gentle figures of love and peace. Your saints are champions of suffering. You tell the story of St. Lawrence, who was roasted alive on a gridiron, and who, according to the legend, joked to his torturers, "I'm well done on this side, turn me over." You tell the story of St. Agatha, whose breasts were cut off with shears. These stories are popular because they make your own suffering feel small and manageable by comparison. If a saint could endure being cooked alive for their faith, then surely you can endure another cold night. The saints are not objects of comfort, they are masters of endurance, and you look to them for lessons on how to suffer correctly. You tell stories about the devils and demons that lurk just outside the circle of firelight. You tell your children about the things that live in the deep, dark woods, the creatures that will snatch away a child who wanders too far from home or disobeys their parents. You tell them about the goblins that sour the milk and the fairies that steal babies from their cradles, leaving a sickly changeling in their place. And you tell stories about the devil himself, who can appear as a handsome stranger or a black dog, always ready to make a deal, to offer you warmth and food in exchange for your immortal soul. These stories are a way of giving a face to the formless anxieties that haunt you. The fear of getting lost, the fear of starvation, the fear of your child getting sick. All of these fears are bundled up and transformed into a monster that you can at least name. And you tell stories about animals, particularly about the cunning wolf. In your stories, the wolf is not just a dumb beast. He is a clever, patient and ruthless hunter who can outsmart a man. He can mimic a human voice to lure you into the woods. He can wait for days, watching your home, learning your routines, waiting for you to make a single mistake. These stories are practical lessons in survival, warnings disguised as entertainment. The world outside your door is dangerous, and the line between predator and prey is very thin. The wolf is a constant reminder that you're not at the top of the food chain. In the deep winter, you are just another potential meal. These stories are not designed to lull you to sleep with comforting thoughts. They are not meant to make you feel safe. They are meant to do the exact opposite. They are meant to teach you. They are meant to warn you. They are meant to keep you sharp and suspicious. And most importantly, they are meant to distract you from the dull, aching gnaw in your gut. For the brief time that a story is being told, the hunger becomes a little less real. The cold becomes a little less biting. You're transported somewhere else, caught up in a world of suffering saints and clever wolves. And then there is the most terrifying story of all. It's a story about a monster who is very real, and who is definitely coming for you. It's the story of taxes. The Lord's Reeve, his manager and tax collector, will be coming around in the spring as soon as the roads are clear. He will have a ledger and a mean look on his face. He will come to collect the Lord's due, the rent you owe for the privilege of living on his land and starving in this hut. You are supposed to pay him in grain, or with a chicken, or with days of unpaid labour, but your grain is almost gone, your chickens are dead, you have nothing left to give him. You know what happens when you can't pay. You could be evicted, thrown off the land to wander the roads with your family. You could be thrown into the Lord's prison. You could be beaten. This fear, the fear of the coming of the Reeve, is colder and sharper than any winter wind. It is a fear that has a date on it, a monster you know is on its way. The darkness and the silence of the night press in on you. The fire is starting to die down, and the shadows are getting longer, deeper. Every creak of the hut's wooden frame sounds like footsteps outside. Every flicker of the flame turns a familiar shape into a lurking monster. In the profound quiet, your own mind becomes the most dangerous place to be, a theatre for your worst fears. Your anxieties, now fully awake, begin their nightly performance. You see the Reeves' angry face. You hear your child's rattling cough. You feel the final, icy cold of death settling into your bones. It is a spiral of despair that is hard to pull yourself out of. But then, the story ends. Your wife finishes her tale about the foolish man who made a deal with a goblin. For a few precious minutes you had forgotten. You forgot that you were hungry. You forgot that your feet were numb. You forgot that you were terrified of the future. You were somewhere else, listening to a voice in the dark. The story was a small raft, and for a little while, it kept your head above the churning water of your own fear. This is how you survive the night. Not with a full belly or a warm bed. You survive it with shared words, with a flickering flame that holds the vast darkness at bay, and with the stubborn, almost irrational refusal to let the darkness win completely. You fight the demons in your mind with stories, and for now, it is enough. You've survived the cold, you've survived the hunger, you've survived the constant itching filth and the gnawing fear that lives in the dark. You have somehow endured a level of pure, grinding misery that would shatter a modern person in a matter of hours. You have lived through a day that a person from the 21st century would consider an unsurvivable catastrophe. And yet, you are here. How? More importantly, why? Why would anyone choose to keep going when every single moment of existence is a form of torture? The answer is not simple, because it is not a choice. It is something much deeper, something harder, something that has been built into the very fibre of your being. It is the stubborn, unrelenting will to live, even when life itself seems to be the greatest punishment of all. The first weak light of dawn begins to filter through the cracks in the wattle and daub walls. It is not a bright, cheerful sunrise. It is a slow, reluctant leaking of grey light into the smoky darkness of your hut. The slivers of light cut across the room, illuminating floating dust motes and the thin clouds of your own breath. You made it. You survived another night. This should feel like a victory, a moment of triumph. But it doesn't. It feels like a miracle, yes, but a grim and joyless one. You're not celebrating your survival. You're simply registering it as a fact. Waking up is not a gift. It is the beginning of another round in a fight you can never truly win. The prize for surviving the night is simply another day of the same suffering. It is a victory that tastes like cold ash. As your mind slowly wakes up, the full weight of the day ahead settles upon you. It feels pointless. Absolutely, soul-crushingly pointless. You're just going to do it all again. You will coax the dying embers back to life. You will eat boiled bark and pretend it is food. You will go out into the freezing wind to do work that will be undone by tomorrow. You will feel the hunger gnaw at your stomach all day. There is no comfort to look forward to. There is no luxury waiting for you as a reward. There is no realistic hope for a better life. You were born a peasant, and you will die a peasant. Your children will live this same life. Nothing will ever change. So why keep going? What is the point of enduring this endless cycle of misery, only to wake up and do it all again tomorrow? The logical part of your brain, if it had the energy, would tell you to simply give up, to lie down and let the cold take you, but you don't. You can't. Maybe it's not a choice. Maybe it's not something you even think about. It is a stubborn, unthinking animal instinct. It is a deep, primal refusal to die that has been passed down through countless generations of survivors. Your ancestors lived through famines, plagues, and wars. They endured their own brutal winters, their own hungry nights. The ones who gave up are gone. Their lines ended. You are here because your bloodline is an unbroken chain of people who are simply too stubborn to die. This instinct to live, to breathe, to see one more sunrise, is not a conscious decision. It is a fundamental part of your biology. It is the same instinct that makes a tree grow towards the light, the same force that makes a blade of grass push through frozen ground. It operates below the level of thought, below the level of despair. It is a simple, powerful command from your own body. Keep going, and you cling to routine. The days are brutal, but they are predictable. The rhythm of the day becomes a kind of refuge. You know you will wake up to the cold. You know you will tend the fire. You know you will do your chores. Out in the distance, the muffled clang of the church bell will ring, marking the hours of the day, a steady pulse in a chaotic world. Even the misery becomes familiar. You know how the hunger will feel. You know how the cold will bite. There are no surprises. In a life where you have absolutely no control over anything important, the weather, your health, your future, this predictability is a small, strange comfort. Routine is a scaffold you build around your life to keep it from collapsing. You put one foot in front of the other, you do the next thing, and then the next. Not because you are hopeful, but because that is what you did yesterday. The familiarity of the suffering is, in its own way, a source of stability. You cling to your family. The motivation to survive is not just an internal selfish instinct. It is sitting right next to you, breathing softly in the cold air. The warmth of the shared blanket, as thin and greasy as it is more than just a defense against hypothermia. It is a connection. You look at your wife's face in the dim morning light. You see the same weariness, the same fear, the same quiet resolve that you feel in your own heart. No words need to be spoken. There is a deep, silent understanding in her eyes. You have seen everything together. You will face this day together. You feel the small, solid weight of your sleeping child pressed against your side. Their small body is so fragile, so vulnerable. You're not just surviving for yourself. You're surviving for them. Your life is no longer just your own. It is part of a small, desperate unit. To give up would not just be your own end. It would be abandoning them to this cold, merciless world. Your love for them is a powerful anchor, holding you in place when the storm of despair threatens to wash you away. And you cling to God. You have a deep, unshakable and unquestioning belief that all of this suffering has a purpose. Your life is not a random accident of cosmic cruelty. It is a test. God is watching you. He is measuring your faith, your endurance, your humility. Every pang of hunger, every shiver of cold, every moment of fear is part of a divine plan that you cannot possibly understand. This belief transforms your suffering from a pointless misery into a meaningful ordeal. You're not just a peasant freezing in a hut. You are a soul being tested on the great stage of creation. And if you pass this test, if you endure your hardships with faith and without complaint, there is something waiting for you beyond this short, painful life. There is the promise of paradise, a place with no cold, no hunger, and no pain. This belief is the ultimate survival tool. It gives meaning to the meaningless. It makes the unbearable bearable. It is a promise that one day all of this will have been worth it. So this brutal winter didn't just break people. It didn't just kill them. For the ones who survived, it forged them. It hammered them into something harder, something tougher than they were before. The unrelenting cold taught them a profound humility. It reminded them every single day of their small, fragile place in a vast and indifferent universe. The constant gnawing hunger taught them a deep and genuine gratitude. To you, a single grain of wheat, a single dried pea, is a treasure, a gift to be cherished. You're grateful for things that a modern person would not even notice. And the suffering itself, it kept them grounded. It stripped away everything that was not essential. It burned away pride, vanity, and selfishness. What was left was the raw, essential core of human experience. The need for warmth, for food, for community, for faith. The suffering bound them tightly to each other, creating a powerful dependence that we can barely imagine today. And perhaps it bound them closer to something bigger than themselves. They survived. Not because life was good, not because they were comfortable, and certainly not because they were happy. They survived because they were tough, they were resilient, and they were, in the end, just too damn stubborn to give up. Somehow many of them made it. They clawed their way through the ice and darkness to see another spring. Their survival wasn't pretty, and it was never heroic. It was simply a raw, rugged, and often grotesque testament to the stubbornness of the human spirit. So, the next time you turn up your thermostat, open a can of soup, or pull on a pair of warm, dry socks, take a moment. Be thankful you're not boiling your own shoes for dinner. They endured all that darkness so that we, centuries later, could live in the light.